Echoes of Gravitational Imprints, the Cosmic Warning. The aftermath of her experiment in the small pyramid wasn't just physical exhaustion, it was a profound rewiring of Ellis Vance's mind. Her perception had been irrevocably altered. The world no longer felt solid and inert, but vibrated with a hidden symphony of forces she could now dimly perceive. The subtle gravitational fingerprints she had once painstakingly mapped were no longer just data points on a screen. They hummed beneath the surface of reality, a constant low thrum against the backdrop of mundane existence. It was like living in a world of static, where suddenly she could hear a faint, urgent melody woven through the noise. Days blurred into a single intense focus. Sleep was a luxury she couldn't afford, food a mere distraction. Her lab, once a sanctuary of scientific chaos, became a crucible for a new, desperate quest. She re-examined every scrap of data, every anomaly, but now through the lens of her expanded consciousness. The pure, coherent cosmic logic she had experienced inside the pyramid hadn't just been a sensory overload, it had deposited a fundamental understanding, a language of the universe expressed not in words, but in the elegant, terrifying beauty of mathematics and the shifting geometry of space-time itself. The fingerprints began to coalesce into something more than just static presence. They were messages, not verbal, not pictorial, but intricate spatial temporal diagrams and complex mathematical equations that flowed directly into her mind, bypassing her analytical processes and settling into an intuitive understanding. It was a laborious, often painful process of translation from pure concept to human comprehension. Headaches would bloom behind her eyes, her nose would bleed, but she couldn't stop. She was compelled by an urgency she couldn't yet articulate, only feel. As the patterns resolved, a horrifying truth began to emerge. The messages were a warning. They spoke of a looming cosmic threat, not from another civilization, but from within the very fabric of existence. The architects, as Ellis now privately called them, were not conquering invaders or benevolent guardians. They were the universe's fundamental principles, beings of pure gravitational essence, and their touch in our reality was an attempt to brace against or warn of a coming cosmic cataclysm. The threat was abstract, terrifyingly fundamental, a dimensional inversion, a slow, inexorable collapse of higher dimensions that would unravel the stability of our own reality. The warnings indicated that this collapse would manifest as escalating gravitational anomalies, unpredictable shifts in causality, and eventually a tearing apart of space-time itself, rendering our three-dimensional existence unstable, then impossible. The whispers of the architects projected not an immediate apocalypse, but a creeping, inevitable decay, a gradual dissolution over vast stretches of cosmic time that had already begun, long before humanity's dawn. The ancient texts, the myths, the impossible constructions, they all suddenly clicked into place. The architects had been aware of this impending doom for eons. They had left these fingerprints and constructed these colossal structures not just as markers of their presence, but as components of a vast, interconnected planetary-scale project, a global defense mechanism, a cosmic arc, or perhaps a means to re-anchor reality itself against the encroaching chaos. The pyramids of Giza were merely the most prominent nodes, powerful gravitational resonators, but the architect's ancient project spanned the entire globe, touching every continent. Ellis's newfound perception illuminated connections she'd never seen, the precise alignments of Stonehenge, not just with celestial bodies, but with subtle gravitational troughs, the impossible stonework of Tiahuanaco in the Andes, resonating with a frequency that mirrored the Giza patterns. The submerged Cyclopean ruins whispered about in legends, their positions hinting at a global geometric grid. These weren't isolated wonders, but interlocking pieces of an immense dormant machine, a planetary-scale circuit board laid out across millennia. The architect's message was clear. Humanity had to activate this project. The impending dimensional inversion was accelerating, and the subtle gravitational anomalies Ellis had been tracking were merely the earliest symptoms. Earth was caught in the path of this coming collapse, and the ancient project represented its only chance. But how to activate it? The architect's language, while now somewhat comprehensible to her altered mind, offered no simple on switch. It provided complex equations, gravitational sequences, and intricate geometric keys that required physical interaction with each site. It was a race against a clock ticking down in cosmic units, a clock that most humanity couldn't even hear. Echoes of gravitational imprints. The global activation. Armed with this terrifying new understanding, Ellis knew she couldn't just publish a paper. No one would believe her. The world would dismiss her as mad or worse, ignore the impending doom until it was too late. Her mission was clear, but impossibly daunting. She had to awaken the ancient project, node by node, across the planet. She was now a lone guardian, the only conduit between humanity and their silent saviors. Her first step was to identify the most critical nodes. Her 4D mapping software, now humming with new algorithms informed by her direct architect-imparted knowledge, highlighted 7 primary locations, forming a colossal geodetic grid across Earth. After Giza, the next most active fingerprint emanated from the Nazca lines in Peru. Not the lines themselves, but the precise geographical point they converged upon, a nexus of telluric and gravitational energy that resonated with the architect's patterns. Funding was Ellis's immediate critical hurdle. Her academic reputation was in tatters, her grants long since revoked. She sold everything she owned, maxed out credit cards, and used the last vestiges of her research budget to purchase specialized portable versions of her gravitational modulator and sensing equipment. She traveled light, driven by a relentless urgency that gnawed at her soul. Her journey to Nazca was fraught with challenges. Even before she arrived, the subtle signs of the dimensional inversion began to manifest with increasing frequency. News reports spoke of unexplained atmospheric phenomena, strange weather patterns, and localized gravitational flickers that caused objects to momentarily levitate or fall with unnatural force. Earthquakes of unusual depth and duration rattled remote regions, and a growing sense of unease rippled through the global subconscious, even if no one articulated its source. These were the symptoms the architects had warned about, the precursors to total unraveling. Upon reaching the Nazca Plateau, Ellis spent days triangulating the precise nexus point, guided by the internal compass of her altered perception. The sheer scale of the geoglyphs, carved by ancient hands for reasons unknown, seemed to whisper of the very cosmic geometry she now understood. She set up her equipment, her small modulator throbbing with concentrated energy, ready to perform the sequence of gravitational frequencies and precise energetic pulses her intuition now guided her to deploy. As she initiated the activation sequence, the ground beneath her trembled, not with an earthquake, but with a deep, resonant hum that vibrated through the air. The desert winds died down to an eerie stillness. The very lines of the Nazca leaves, etched into the earth for millennia, seemed to subtly glow with a faint, almost phosphorescent light, tracing the patterns of her projected gravitational signature. A column of shimmering air rose from the nexus point, visible only to Ellis, coalescing into a complex, rotating fractal of pure light and shadow. A fleeting, almost overwhelming glimpse into the higher dimensions the architects inhabited. It was the undeniable proof of connection, a success. But the activation was far from smooth. The local authorities, alerted by the unusual energy readings and strange atmospheric disturbances, quickly converged on her location. They were confused, armed, and deeply suspicious. Ellis found herself scrambling to pack her essential equipment, narrowly escaping before she could be apprehended. She was now not just a rogue scientist, but an international fugitive, hunted by authorities who could never comprehend the stakes of her mission. From Peru, the architect's cosmic map pulled her next to the ancient submerged city of Yonaguni off the coast of Japan. Then to a deeply buried site beneath the ice of Antarctica that resonated with a primal, almost alien hum. Each activation was a harrowing trial, a race against natural disasters escalating in intensity and the tightening net of global security forces. She lived off the grid, constantly changing identities.
Echoes of Gravitational Imprints, the apex of reality. The journey had consumed Ellis. Months blurred into a relentless pursuit across continents, a desperate race against the accelerating decay of reality. Each activated node of the ancient project, from the enigmatic depths of Yonaguni to the biting winds of Antarctica's buried hum, had taken its toll, physically and mentally. She was a ghost, hunted by bewildered authorities, her only companions the silent, insistent signals of the architects and the growing sense of their vast, cosmic dread. Her own mind, now an increasingly permeable membrane between human perception and pure gravitational consciousness, sometimes struggled to distinguish between the two. The fingerprints were no longer just echoes. They were a constant, resonant hum within her, guiding her, changing her. Her final destination, the most critical node, shimmered in her mind's eye like a beacon. The Tibetan Plateau, specifically a remote high-altitude monastery nestled amongst peaks that had seen millennia pass in silent contemplation. Ancient legends spoke of it as a place where the veil between worlds was thinnest, a place of profound spiritual energy. Ellis's architect-infused perception confirmed it. This was the heart, the central nexus of the entire global system, the final key to either humanity's salvation or its ultimate dissolution. Reaching it was an odyssey of its own. The dimensional inversion was no longer a subtle anomaly. Localized gravitational fields flickered violently, causing bizarre phenomena. Rain falling upwards for minutes, objects levitating before crashing back down, moments of temporal discontinuity where seconds stretched into minutes or snapped out of existence entirely. The news was filled with escalating panic, though still devoid of true understanding. Scientists scrambled for explanations, governments issued futile warnings, but the true nature of the threat remained shrouded, too vast, too fundamental for the uninitiated mind to grasp. Ellis, emaciated but driven by an almost superhuman resolve, finally reached the monastery. Its ancient stones hummed with a power unlike any other. Within its deepest, most sacred chamber, where monks had meditated for centuries, a colossal, perfectly smooth obsidian monolith stood, radiating a palpable, complex gravitational field. This wasn't built by humans. It felt like a solidified thought, a materialized equation. It was the final interface. She set up her battered modulator, its conduits glowing faintly, protesting the strain. Her hands, trembling not from fear but from the immense power coursing through her, moved with an instinctual precision she no longer consciously controlled. The architect's language poured into her, guiding her through a sequence of gravitational frequencies and scalar pulses so intricate that they would have driven any other human mad. This wasn't just activation, it was a synthesis. She wasn't just pressing a button, she was becoming an integral part of the mechanism. As the modulator reached its peak, the obsidian monolith resonated with a deep, resonant hum that vibrated the very air, shaking the ancient monastery to its foundations. Ellis felt a profound, almost excruciating ripping sensation within her own consciousness, as if the last remnants of her individuality were being stretched across the cosmos. The chamber filled not with light, but with an overwhelming silent presence. The collective intelligence of the architects, no longer just a distant echo, but a vibrant, immediate reality. She didn't see them, she became them, if only for a fraction of a second. Her consciousness merged with the vast, fundamental forces, experiencing the entire ancient project coming online simultaneously across the planet. She felt the counter-gravitational fields ripple outwards from every activated node like a planetary shield blooming in the face of the encroaching dimensional inversion. She perceived the tearing fabric of reality being mended, not perfectly, but given a reprieve, a stabilization against the entropic pull. The silent, cosmic scream began to subside, replaced by a hum of re-established equilibrium. Then, just as suddenly, the connection severed. The overwhelming presence receded. The modulator whined, then went silent. Its power core burned out. Ellis collapsed, not onto the cold stone floor, but into a profound, absolute stillness. Hours later, perhaps days, an old monk found her. She was alive, but profoundly changed. Her eyes, once sharp and analytical, now held an ancient, distant wisdom. A gaze that seemed to pierce through the physical world to perceive its underlying forces. She barely spoke, and when she did, her words were not entirely her own, tinged with the alien logic of the architects. The dimensional inversion had been pushed back, the immediate threat averted, but the cost was immeasurable. Ellis Vance, the brilliant physicist, was gone, replaced by something more. A sentinel. A living echo of the architects, forever bound to the reality she had saved. She would live out her days in quiet contemplation, a silent guardian connected to the beating heart of the ancient project, ensuring its continued function. The world would never know the true nature of the anomalies that slowly receded, or the lone figure who sacrificed her humanity to keep the cosmos from unraveling. The echoes of gravitational imprints would continue, but now, Ellis was a part of them. The universe hummed on, saved, but forever slightly altered, just like the woman who stood as its silent witness.